What they are. All right, take your Bible, join me in Proverbs chapter 23. My subject is wise up. Phil talked about wake up, and Chris, grow up in critical pursuits and priorities to be a man of God. Just a couple of things I can't help but say. Just reflecting, listening to Philip and encourage you and having a friendship with him and with Chris and recognizing that appearing on the screen several times during our time this morning was the scripture from Proverbs 27, the book of wisdom. Iron does sharpen iron. And one man does sharpen another man. And I can say sincerely and from the bottom of my heart that I'm a better man because of these two men, Chris and Philip. Their fellowship in the gospel, their fellowship in ministry, but the brotherhood of talking about what it means to serve God's people and what it means to follow a great God. And here's the point of why I wanted to say that, not only because they mean a lot to me, but you need men in your life that are ahead of you. I think the greatest thing you can do for yourself this weekend is decide, I need men that are better than I am in categories that matter, that I can partner with and let their life sharpen my life. He that walks with the wise will be wise, but to companion with the foolish, which are the unwise, the end of that path is destruction and damage and difficulty. So just as a word of encouragement, the reason I have anything to say to you is because there have been men that have been better than me investing in me. And there are two of those men sitting at the table with me. And there ought to be men sitting at the table with you that are that for you as well. Second thing I wanted to say by way of just reflection. This is not what I'm going to preach. These two statements do come out of concepts relating to wisdom. I was sharing with Chris as he was finishing up. I love the passage he referred to in Ephesians 5 as an encouragement to you because Ephesians 5 goes like this: be careful how you walk or live, not as unwise, but as wise. Don't be foolish. Understand what the will of the Lord is because the days are evil. This is a dark season. It's a difficult day. The current is evil and against you. And if you're not wise, you'll be foolish and the current of the culture will take you away. And then it goes on to say, know what the will of the Lord is. Don't be drunk with wine. Don't be governed by wasteful things. That leads to a wasteful life. And Chris referred to it, but keep on being filled with the Spirit of God. Because Jesus said, without me, you can do nothing. And all of the things you're going to hear this weekend are going to challenge your heart. But I just want to punctuate what he already said. You can't do any of this without first dying to yourself, depending on him by faith, listening to him, his word of instruction through his scripture, as well as the whispers of God through the prompting of the Holy Spirit. So it's dying, it's depending, it's listening, and it's acting in faith by obeying. And God does the supernatural that you can't do. Make the most of the time. That means to buy up today. I don't care how old you are. This is really, when we talked about this several months ago, we talked about the need of young men. I'm a campus pastor at a university where I encounter lots of young men. And by the way, a shout out to the team that's here from the Masters University serving you and serving this church this weekend. I have the privilege of engaging with a lot of wonderful young men and young women. But this is an observation which in part led to this conference and its theme, and that is today's young person knows more than any generation in history, but they are less prepared to apply what they know. We're in the business of developing wisdom. Where there's an abundance of knowledge, there's an absence often of wisdom. And we're in the business of establishing convictions. Convictions that have been sown and seeded in the life of a young person by parents or by a church. Our role in my ministry life is to help establish those convictions so that they are owned by those young men and women. They're not passed down, they're owned in the heart. They're freestanding moral agents who believe some things. And my subject today is going to come out of the book of Proverbs because it involves developing wisdom and establishing a key conviction. Let me read you some things. It has been said of our culture today that we know more than any generation in history, but we are less wise. Our culture, some have said, has lost common sense, and we've mistaken knowledge for wisdom. We have an abundance of information, but we don't know how to integrate it or put it together so that we can live wisely. It's easy to assume, says one, that an abundance of knowledge results in wisdom. But listen to this statement. But wisdom is not knowledge. Yale University professor Robert Sternberg suggests in Why Smart People Can Be So Stupid, that's the title of his book, that foolishness often results from knowledge acquisition gone awry. Knowledge either not received or knowledge wrongfully applied. T.S. Eliot, a British poet and playwright, laments, where is the wisdom that we've lost in knowledge? What's happened to it? Where's the knowledge we've lost in information? Here's a statement about our culture. Today we analyze, but we don't synthesize. Wisdom is what makes knowledge effective. We know a lot, but what we know needs to be integrated, put together. Without synthesis, knowledge cannot benefit us. We cannot benefit from what we know. So the passion of today and my talk to you is to call you to employ and apply and acquire wisdom necessary to apply what you know. In order to encourage that, let me just remind you as you turned in the book of Proverbs, you're in chapter 23, which is the passage that I want to unpack today. And I want to do 5 things, really. I want to call you to conviction. I want to establish a non-negotiable, emphatic yes. No matter what, emphatically say, I want to do this. As a man who wants to prosper, as a man who wants to have a life that matters, as a man who wants to be an agent of kingdom influence, I'm committed to this. No matter what, I'm doing this. And then I want to talk to you about the 4 non-negotiable no's. Necessary no convictions. Things that compete with the emphatic yes. That's where we're going in Proverbs chapter 23. But I want to highlight contextually just some thoughts about Proverbs, hopefully to motivate you. Because this book is written to advance the goal of this conference. To make the naive, the young, the not fully mature, the open doors, those who are open-minded, not resolved, not convinced, haven't made up their mind, to bring them to a place where they respond with wisdom. This book, Proverbs chapter 1, says this book is written that you might know wisdom and instruction, so that you'll discern sayings of understanding, that you'll receive instruction in wise behavior. This book is written for that purpose, that you'll obtain wisdom. Proverbs is a familiar book to most of us. It is called the Book of Wisdom. It's Solomon's work, mostly. These are perspectives and principles from heaven, someone has said, for life on earth. Counsel from above for conduct below. Words of the wise on the ways of the world. By its declaration in chapter 1, it is given so that you'll have wisdom, and wisdom is super valuable. Wisdom results in a life you're going to love. A life that's prosperous in the ways that matter the most. A life that's priceless. Let me emphasize in Proverbs chapter 3, just listen again to words I'm sure you're familiar with, because there's promises related to the fruit of the book of Proverbs. We're going to study a section of it, but here's the promise regarding all of it. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 13 reads this way, "How blessed is the man who finds wisdom," verse 13, "and the man who gains understanding." That's life perspective. The one who gets wisdom is blessed. The one who gets understanding, life perspective derived from wisdom, is benefited. For her, that's a reference to wisdom, her profit is better than the profit of silver, and her gain better than fine gold. She's more precious, wisdom that is, than jewels. Now listen to this mammoth statement. "And nothing you desire compares with her." Well, listen, there's a lot of things you can desire, and you can write them out, you can put them on the board, you can script all of them, and all of them are lesser than this priority. Proverbs 8:10 amplifies, in case you missed it, "Take my instruction," this is wisdom talking, "and not silver, knowledge, rather than choicest gold. For wisdom is better than jewels, and all desirable things cannot be compared with her." Why is wisdom better? Why is wisdom better than gold? Why is wisdom better than jewels? Is it better because it can buy more than gold and jewels? No, wisdom is better because it leads to what gold and jewels cannot buy. Wisdom acquires what is priceless. It secures what gold cannot acquire. Wisdom leads to the best life in the ways that matters the most. In the book of Proverbs, the net result of wisdom is called uprightness or righteousness. And if you read through the book of Proverbs, wisdom results in an upright or righteous life. Equity and justice. That's what Proverbs chapter 1 says. You get this, you're going to behave in a righteous way. That word in Proverbs is a relational word. Righteous is not just a conduct of life, it is a right relationship of life vertically. Proverbs says wisdom results in an upright, rightly related life to God, and a rightly related life to people, and a rightly related life to the world, the natural world in which you live. It is a life that is rightly related to God, to others, and even nature. A life that works the best and accomplishes the most in the categories that matter the most. Wisdom secures, listen gentlemen, to what is priceless. Get that. Get what is priceless. So you might want to ask, so what is wisdom? Biblically, it involves two big ideas. Wisdom, hokmah, means skilled living. The knowing what to do and how to do it. There are men in the Old Testament who had the spirit of wisdom, gifted by God. They were artisans. They were craftsmen. They crafted the high priest's breastplate, their clothing, their embroidery, the tabernacle, the temple. They were skilled craftsmen, which has resulted in wisdom means knowing what to do and how to do it. Skillful living, skillful knowing what to do. But there's another concept in wisdom. Matter of fact, turn over to Proverbs chapter 8. Let me just highlight this before we look at our text, because I think it's important for you to understand what you need. Not only that you need it, what wisdom says is, I'm better than anything you can desire. Because when I'm applied to your life, when you have it, you can secure what is priceless, what money can't buy, what hard work can't do, what an inheritance can't provide. Wisdom can secure. So what else is wisdom? Not only how to, but God's overview, where to, knowing where I am, where I need to go, and how to get there. Wisdom is God's perspective on life. I like Proverbs chapter 8 because you can feel it here. Verse 1, does not wisdom call? And understanding lift up her voice. Now look at where wisdom is. Verse 2, on top of the heights, beside the way, elevated, above, overview. Now, I like this. Where the paths meet, she takes her stand. At the crossroads of life, wisdom has an above perspective, helping you know, it's calling out, listen to me, this is where you need to go. When you come to the crossroads of life, critical junctures, wisdom is above, looking down, telling you go this way or that way. Wisdom is the above you. Look at verse 3. Beside the gates, at the opening of the city, at the entrance of the doors, she cries out. Now, the gates of the city in ancient cities were where the leaders would gather and they would make definitive decisions that affected the community. Big decisions, critical decisions. This passage says wisdom is the overview perspective when you get to critical junctures of life. Wisdom is inviting you to listen so you know what to go, know where to go, what to conclude, what to decide, because wisdom has perspective you need, and you can't get it unless God gives it, because Proverbs 2:6 says wisdom comes from the Lord. Wisdom is God's perspective so you can have what money can't buy. A life that's productive, rightly related to God, rightly related to others, a life rightly related to the world in which you live, a life that works the best, accomplishes the most in the categories that matter the most. That's wisdom. Anybody want that? That's what this book is. That's why Maximized Manhood, my subject today, is wise up. Go get what you need, so you can be the man that God built you to be. Rightly related to Him, rightly related to them, and the world in which you live. You need an ingredient you don't have. Wisdom says, I'm offering it. You can't buy it, but you can get it. Because it's not about how much you're worth. It's about how much it's worth and how you pursue it. Wisdom is the overview. Knowing what to do and how to do it, where to go and how to get there. And wisdom is priceless. I'll give you an example just by way of illustration. Wisdom is what you have by way of perspective. This used to be true. I don't know that it's true today, but when I used to go to Pizza Hut with my children, they loved the Pizza Hut pizza, the thick one, deep dish, that's what it was. And while we're waiting on deep dish pizza, they would have placemats in the Pizza Hut to entertain the children. They'd have different games to play. One of those exercises involved a maze, where you start here and you got to get there, and you take your crown and you kind of draw your way through till you get to the goal. Well, that's not too hard for an adult doing the placemat maze because of the perspective you enjoy. The overview. You can see where you are, you see where the obstacles are, and you can navigate your way through because you're over the top, not in the maze. I used to take my staff when I lived in Birmingham to Destin, Florida, Panama City, which has just endured a great injury through Hurricane Michael. I don't know if this survived or not, but they used to have a maze there that was a block big. And it had 12-foot walls. And you paid money to go in one end to get out the other end. And there were paths you could walk. And then you would come to a dead end. You'd turn a corner. You couldn't see. The competition with my staff was who could start and who could finish the fastest. Well, apparently I'm not very gifted in the maze. But I have ways to overcome my weakness. Because the maze also was entertaining to people who weren't doing the maze, and they had these towers. And my senior adults pastor, who was 80, was housed in one of those towers watching the staff compete. After many closed off pathways, running into several walls, I decided that what was fun was no longer fun. I'd had enough of this good time. So I looked up and I said, Drew, Where do I go next? Harry, that's cheating. Drew, you work for me. I did say that. I said, I want out. It was interesting because he guided me all the way out. Now, I didn't take the prize, but I got out. You know what Drew had that Harry didn't have? Perspective. That's what wisdom is. He had wisdom. He had perspective that I didn't have. Do you know who has perspective that you don't have? He does. And what he says to men, I want you to listen to me. I'm talking to you so that you can live a life otherwise you would never live. Maximized influence, maximized manhood, a life that's priceless and prosperous. That's what's housed in the book of Proverbs. And Proverbs chapter 23 is our focus today. One emphatic yes, 4 necessary no's, a challenge to you as it relates to manning up and to wising up. Wisdom applied to your life. We're going to look at Proverbs chapter 23, verses 17 through 35. We're going to do a high-speed journey, and we're going to dig in to the centerpiece of this text. Now, this is in a section of Proverbs, which is Proverbs chapter 10 through Proverbs chapter 24. It's a section. And in that section are what are called epigrams. Epigram means inscription. It's an extended section of proverbial wisdom, not just little bullet points, but a section that revolves around a major emphasis. The word epigram means to carve or to inscribe, like somebody's going to carve something on your heart, something in your head that you won't forget. This is a substantive carving of wisdom that is meant to impact you. This is a father to a son. This is the king to his citizens. This is a call. These are proverbial thoughts that are meant to maximize his son's life so that he'd be a happy father and he would be a king that enjoyed the benefit of his people serving in a way that was prosperous and priceless. You can feel that a little bit in verse 15. My son, if your heart is wise, my heart will also be glad. In my utmost being, I'll rejoice. In other words, deep down inside, I'm going to celebrate when your lips speak what is right. Look at Proverbs chapter 23, verse 24. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who begets a wise son will be glad in him. Verse 25, let your father and your mother be glad. Let her rejoice who gave birth to you. These are instructions from a father who is a king to his son, and through his son to the citizens that he leads, that they'll live a prosperous life. We're going to focus on the emphatic yes housed in verse 23. This is the positive call, and then there's 4 necessary no's that compete with this priority. We begin with the centerpiece of this section. This is what you, by way of conviction, need to say, yes, no matter what, I'm committed to this. Here's what the father says to the son, the king to his citizens. Here's the call. Verse 23. Buy truth and do not sell it. Get wisdom and instruction and understanding. This is the path to a priceless life. This is an emphatic yes. This is buy the truth and don't sell it. It's a call to a conviction and a commitment at cost to invest in getting and owning truth and never selling it. This includes getting wisdom, you saw that in the verse, instruction and understanding. This is a proactive pursuit that involves investing time, effort, and resource to get truth perspectives from God, which gives you wisdom. That's God's perspective. And it involves getting instruction, which is training in the truth from the people who know the truth, and which will give you understanding, which is the application of the truth. The net result, a productive, prosperous life that glorifies God, blesses men, upright, rightly related. Now, if you're going to buy the truth, and I want to unpack this for a little bit. I want to meditate with you on this. If you're going to buy the truth, you're going to say, I want to purchase the truth. This means and requires at least 5 things. Number 1, if you're going to buy the truth, it means you have to value the truth. You don't buy what you don't value. You don't invest in what you don't desire. So let's talk about the value of the truth. I'm just going to highlight some things. Why the truth is valuable and why you ought to buy it. Number 1, you ought to value the truth because God values it. He describes himself by it. He's identified by it. And his glory consists in it. Psalm 31 verse 5, David declares, you ransomed me, O God of truth. Isaiah 65:16, we will be blessed by you, O God of truth. He's defined by it. He's described by it. Listen to his bombastic self-revelation in Exodus 34. Remember when Moses said, show me your glory, and God passes by proclaiming his personal description of himself and his glory? The Bible reads this way, then the Lord Yahweh passed by in front of him, Moses, and God proclaimed, the Lord God, compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in loving kindness and truth. God's identity and glory is connected to truth, which is why the incarnate God, Jesus, his glory consists in it. You know this verse, John 1:14, the Word became flesh, dwelt among us, we beheld his glory, glory of the only begotten of the Father, so his glory is full of grace and truth. All God's work is connected to the truth. Listen to Daniel 4:37. Praise, exalt, and honor the King of heaven, for all his works are truth. Value the truth. God is described by it, identified by it. His glory consists in it, and all his works are defined by it. Value the truth, listen to this, because kingdom leaders are qualified by it. In Exodus 18:21, the Lord prescribes those to lead his people must be defined by the truth. He says, quote, select out of all the people able men of God, men who fear God, men of truth. The truth is essential for serving God and seeing God do great things. Let me punctuate this a little further. 1 Samuel chapter 12, the prophet and judge of Israel says to the people of God, you must not, verse 21, 1 Samuel 12, you must not turn aside from truth, for then you would go after futile things which cannot profit or deliver because they're futile. Verse 23 continues, I will instruct you in the good and right way, only fear the Lord, serve him in truth with all your heart, for consider what great things he has done for you as a consequence of living in the truth. Verse 25, but if you do wickedly, that's contextually abandoning or rejecting or rebelling against the truth, both you and your king will be swept away. Now, let me summarize what he just said about why the truth is valuable. With it, or without it rather, life is futile. Kings are disqualified, kingdoms are removed. With it, the truth, people, families, and nations will be benefited and blessed. You want to work for God? You want to be used by God? You want to be blessed by God? You and the people you influence? Be a man of the truth. You want to identify with God, who identifies himself and his glory and his work with the truth? Be a man of the truth. Psalm 15, verse 2. Those who have audience with God, referred to there as abiding in his tent, those who get to behold him, to relate to him, listen to what the psalmist said. They must speak truth in their heart. Psalm 25, verse 10, all the paths of the Lord, which is where you have fellowship with him, not just in his tent, but all the paths that you walk with him are loving kindness and truth. To walk with him, you have to walk in the truth. This is 1 John chapter 1. You have fellowship with the Father and his Son. You got to walk in the truth. And you know this. Let me give you another reason to value it. It's the means to freedom. It's the means to life. Biblically, the truth enlivens by providing the means to the life that is truly life, the eternal life of God gifted to those who come to the Father by the one who said, I'm the way and I'm the truth and the life. Jesus declared the truth is the means to real freedom. He said, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. In John 17, when he prayed to his Father, he asked the Father, sanctify them, make them holy like you are, sanctify them with the truth. Your word is truth. Listen, there's a reason why you ought to buy the truth. Not only because God identifies with it, is glorified by it, does all his work through it, but he uses people as agents of influence who are governed by it, who possess it. He not only uses them, he changes them. He transforms them. He gives them a life that otherwise they could not have. And then he enjoys fellowship with them. When Proverbs says an emphatic yes, by the truth, it begins with saying, by conviction, that's really valuable. If I'm going to go seek it and secure it and invest in it and sacrifice for it, I've got to believe it's worth it. And I'm going to argue until that's a conviction you have, you'll not spend what is required. You'll not sacrifice what is necessary in order to secure what God is making available to you. Value the truth. Buy the truth and don't sell it. Buying the truth begins with valuing the truth. And if you're going to buy it and not sell it, you need to value it the way God values it. You need to value it enough so it's never for sale. There's another thing about buying the truth. You not only need to value it, you need to seek it. Seek it. You need to have a proactive and purposeful pursuit of it. Look, like coming here today, this took intentionality. That's what buying the truth requires. You have to purposely pursue it. You're not going to get it by osmosis, and you're certainly not going to have it knock at your door in this culture. There's no television program I know of on a major channel or network you're going to turn on and hear true magnetic north truth from the Word of God about the things of God. If you're going to know the truth, you're not going to naturally run into it. You're going to have to purposefully and proactively seek it. We live in a world like Romans 1 where men suppress the truth in unrighteousness. To buy the truth means you have to seek it, not just value it. You have to go purposefully pursue it. Number 3, buying the truth requires you know what you're looking for. This is a biggie. Remember Pilate's famous question in John 18:38, what is truth? That's a great question, and that's one that our culture has a hard time answering. And maybe for some of us, we have a difficult time defining what the truth is. Let me give you a brief definition so you know what you're seeking. Here's a bottom line. Truth is reality. By definition, something is true when it conforms to reality, when it accurately reflects what is. The truth houses the witness of reality. The truth, listen to me, is what is. Not what you think it is, but what is. The Hebrew word here is emeth, which means faithful, reliable, faithful to reality, reliable, firm, which means you can bank on it. The truth means the state of being the case, the body of real things, events, and facts, actuality. Again, the truth is what is. By definition, for it to be the truth, it must be fully accurate. Any deviation from reality disqualifies a claim as the truth. It is not what you think it is what is. The reason I keep emphasizing that is because in our culture, 72% say the truth is not what is, but what works. If it works, it's true. which is why some people abandon Christianity, come to the conclusion this doesn't work. It's not a truth conviction, it's a pragmatic conclusion. 72% believe that you can tell if something is morally or ethically true for you by whether or not it works. Millard Erickson, a theologian, writes, popular pragmatism tends to assume that immediate workability is the criterion for truth. The truth is not what works, but what is, whether you think it works or not. 2, truth is not what you perceive or believe it is. The truth is what is. Your perception of truth may or may not be reality. I bought my first Rolex watch in New York City in 1980. On the street. It looked like a Rolex watch, but it wasn't a Rolex watch. Because perception doesn't equal reality. We often lack critical information and perspective on reality. You look at the book of Job, it's all about a failure to perceive reality. Job didn't know, nor did his friends. They sought to speak truth, but they didn't have the full picture. Let me read you something that's fairly sobering. D.A. Carson gives this sobering perspective on our culture. It's a reference to millennials. In other words, you were born 1980 or after, or Generation Z, which is the year 2000 to the present. Let me give you his perspective on the millennials and Generation Z, our culture. Quote, 81% of millennials and Generation Z believe that all truth is relative to the individual and his or her circumstance. 81%. They do not believe there is a truth outside of themselves. In other words, not objective. That determines right from wrong. They do not believe there's a universal truth that is right for all people in all places at all times. In other words, they believe there's no such thing as absolute moral truth. And listen, you know, that's not new. Universities, secular universities, have been teaching for a long time that truth is relative and progressive, that it evolves. Thus, young people have been culturally conditioned to believe that each individual has been given the right to say or do what that person thinks is best for him and her. Our culture, the world in which you live, and don't underestimate its power to influence you, has come to believe that religion and morality is a personal and private matter. They surmise that no one should be allowed to impose his or her own ideas of what is right or wrong on another. The culture, even the best and the brightest, even some in our churches, have adopted the view that moral truth is not true for them until they choose to believe it. They believe the act of believing makes things true. And then once they believe those things will be true for them until they choose to believe something else. That's an assessment of our culture, the world in which you live. But what is truth? Truth is not what you perceive it is or believe it is what it is. It is not something subjective to you or from you. If you're going to buy the truth, you got to know what you're looking for. And you have to know it has value. You're going to have to seek it. And you're going to have to know where to find it. So fourthly, buying the truth requires you know where to find it. To buy the truth, you have to know where to get it. Now, for the sake of time and the context in which I'm in, let me highlight the two places. Number one, you will find the truth in a real person. The truth is a person. Philip talked about Jesus as being a man. He's also the possessor and the representative of what is true. He is the one who said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. I am God's personal revelation of the truth. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, John 1:1, and the Word became flesh, John 1:14, and dwelt among us. We beheld His glory, glorious of the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth. Verse 17, grace and truth were realized through Jesus Christ. John 8:31, Jesus declares, if you abide in my word, then you are truly disciples of mine. Verse 32, you shall know the truth, By knowing his words, you shall know the truth, because he said, John 8:45, I speak the truth. Interesting statement in response to Pilate in John 18. After Pilate says, what is truth? Listen to what Jesus said. Pilate therefore said to him, so you're a king? And Jesus answered, you say correctly that I'm a king. Listen to this. For this I've been born, and for this I've come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Let me bottom line with you. According to Jesus, what Jesus said is the truth. It is what is. Everything Jesus said and did was a personal revelation by God of the truth. It is the revelation of what is. If you're going to buy the truth, you're going to have to invest in knowing Jesus, his words, and his work. Gentlemen, if you're going to buy the truth, you have to understand that the source, personal source, incarnate source of truth has been manifest through the person of God's Son, and you're going to have to invest in knowing him, what he said, what he did, for it is the self-revelation of God, of the truth, which God alone gives and possesses. Can you say amen to that? Look, most of us master statistics on people way more than we master realities about Jesus. You ought to know what he said. You ought to know what he did if you're going to be a person influenced by the benefit of the truth that he modeled and spoke. There's a second source. You know this. You find the truth in a true revelation, the Word of God, the Bible. God's written revelation of the truth, 66 books, 40 authors, 1,500 years, validated by the witness of what it says about itself, what history says, what prophecy says, what Jesus said, what people continue to say. This is the truth. This is transformational. John 17:17, Jesus said, sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. Psalm 119, 142, David, thy law is truth. Psalm 119, 151, all your commandments are truth. Psalm 119, 160, the sum of your word is truth. Romans 2:20, Paul to the Jews, in the law you have the embodiment of knowledge and of the truth. The Bible is reality. Buy this. Get instruction for this. Know the work and person of Jesus Christ. J. Sidlow Baxter says of the Bible that this one volume, compared to the world's largest library, quote, all the tens of thousands of books collected, cannot teach us more about the fundamental realities of the universe and human life than we learn in the Scriptures. To remain ignorant of the Bible is infinite deprivation. For it is in the Bible that we are furnished with all essential realities which come to us stamped with divine certainty. 65% believe there is no way to tell which religion is true. And yet, Nobel Prize winner, Christian Nobel Prize winner, Arno Penzias says, quote, the best scientific data we have is exactly what I would have predicted if I had nothing but the 5 books of Moses, the Psalms, and the Bible as a whole. In other words, the inspired scriptures, according to this physicist, is the scriptures are a witness of reality, even the truth it proclaims about the natural realm and science. Let me summarize this point for you. You got to know where it is. And you have to understand that it's in a person revealed in a book that's the truth, inspired by God. The Bible is reality. The Bible is the story of the truth as it relates to our world, seen and unseen, past, present, and future. The Bible is the reality of how things began and how they end. The reality of the way things are and how they got that way. The reality of who we are and who God is. The Bible is the reality of what God has done and what we must do. The Bible is the truth of what was, what is, and what will be. And yet, according to Thomas Nelson, for the first time, Bible sales are down. According to exit polls, 50% of those who come into a Bible bookstore leave with a book other than the Bible. Buy the truth. Don't sell it. Know what it is. Know where you get it. And number 5, if you're going to buy the truth means you have to invest in order to, listen to this, own it. You buy it to own it. Buy implies cost, commitment, and ownership. If you're going to buy the truth, you're going to have to pay with effort, time, and money. You buy the truth at cost by investing time, effort, and resource to study the Bible and the life and words of Jesus. When I first went to seminary, my first Greek class, we studied the verse in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, study to show yourself approved, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed. We did a word study on the word study. It's the Greek word spoudazo. It's an interesting word. You should track it. This is what it means. Number 1, do something quickly, don't wait. Number 2, work to the point of pain. Study to show yourself approved means put forth every effort to the point of pain in order to be an approved workman. Work fast, work hard. Study to show yourself approved. Putting forth every effort. Buy is hard work at cost. You buy the truth by investing time, effort, and resources in learning truth from others who know it and how to apply it. Frankly, that's why you need to be discipled. You need to be proactively learning, whether it's online, in this church. Find a way to get in a place where somebody who knows more than you know about Jesus and the Word of God, you say, this is what I'm acquiring. I'm committing to this. We're willing to take courses on how to swing a golf club. We're willing to pay people money on how to do computer technology better or some other priority. Invest yourself in learning the Word of God from people who know the Word of God. If you're a young person, get a Christian education. Education is more than getting a job. True education has to be a truth-based education. Pay for that. Learn more than how to make a living. Somebody said this. Learn how to live life. Buy also means you commit to invest so that you can possess it as your own. If you buy something, you own it. Buying is a commitment to own. Owning it means you live it. If you're going to buy it, you're going to live it. That's what Proverbs 23:24. It's parallelism. In other words, if you get truth, verse 24 is going to happen. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who begets a wise son will be glad in him. Righteousness equals wise, which is wisdom living the truth. Buying the truth is a commitment to invest and possess. To know it and make it your own as a possession of your life. You don't own the truth if you don't live the truth. The truth is valuable. It's priceless. Get it, keep it, protect it. Hang on to it. Whatever you do, don't sell it. Proverbs 4:13, hold on to instruction. Do not let it go. Guard it well, for it is your life. This commitment clearly means I'm not going to sell out on the truth. Let me just summarize that by saying if you don't sell it, it means you're not going to neglect it. You're not going to compromise it. You're not going to ignore it. You're not going to dilute it. You're not going to change it. You're not going to misinterpret it. You're not going to abandon it. You're not going to deny it. In essence, you're not going to trade the truth for a lesser thing. And gentlemen, there's a lot of truth selling in our culture. People sell the truth for political gain or political correctness, for business, for profit, to improve the bottom line, to secure a relationship or not lose a relationship, or for the blatant pursuit of pleasure or the justification of sin. I'm going to sell out the truth. When you sell, devalue, and compromise the truth, you not only forfeit the means to a prosperous and impactful life, you literally identify with the enemy who Daniel says in Daniel 8:12, he flings the truth to the ground. Wisdom says, buy the truth and don't sell it. That's the emphatic yes. Are you investing? Are you valuing? Are you seeking? Do you know what you're looking for? And are you pursuing it to the point of pain? Gentlemen, if we're going to be men, we've got to be men of the truth. If we want to be men who maximize, who influence kingdom culture, who are different in our home and in our churches and our difference makers, we have to be truth saturated, truth governed. The truth defines our fruitfulness. You have it, you get instruction in it, you gain knowledge you don't have, you get perspective, and you have a conviction that says, I'm going to obey the truth that God entrusts to me. Empowered by the Holy Spirit. I'm going to be careful how I walk, not as unwise, but wise, making the most of the time by capitalizing on the things that matter the most. Can you say amen to that? Amen. All right, let me highlight in closing the 4 necessary no's. These are the truth inhibitors. These are the truth underminers. Wisdom barriers. Prosperity prohibitors, impact defeaters. Here they are. 4 things. Unholy heroes, unwholesome associations, immoral relations, and reality-altering actions. Let me show you what's surrounding this emphatic yes, this epigram, things that you cannot do. Truth underminers. Verse 17. Do not let your heart envy sinners, but live in the fear of the Lord. Now here's the necessary non-negotiable no. Do not let your heart envy sinners. I'm calling those unholy heroes because of the word envy. First of all, sinners are defined as God dishonors and divine lawbreakers. Envy means to want to be what they are, have what they have, enjoy what they enjoy, their talent, their station, their stuff, their fame. This involves elevating the influence and the interest of the ungodly in your life because you want what they have and you like what they like. Listen, we are in a celebrity culture of elevating people who are anti-God, unholy, and ungodly. We buy their books, we listen to their music, we watch their stuff. It's an unending propaganda. We want what they want, we like what they have. Following them, paying attention to them, listening to them can degrade your sensitivity to truth and wisdom. Athletes, musicians, actors, successful entrepreneurs, businessmen, educators. They are truth misleaders. Listen, the top 5 business books this year, and written not a one of them by somebody who knows the truth. Social media. The top 5 most followed people on the planet, according to Apple Tree Communication. In other words, people pay attention to what they think or do. Number 5, Rihanna. 150 million people follow her a day. Number 4, Selena Gomez. 205 million people follow her. Number 3, pop singer Katy Perry. 219 million. The only male to make the list, Cristiano Ronaldo, 238 million. By the way, I won't talk about Cristiano, but I won't. Got 4 children trying to figure out who their dad is. Number 1, singer Taylor Swift. Theologian Taylor Swift, who now has political opinions. 246 million people tune in to see what she says or thinks. There's only 323 million people in the United States. Millions of Christians follow, listen to their opinions and lyrics, buy their music and their books, observe their lifestyle, influenced by them. Cultural influencers today have major influence on our culture. Proverbs 14:7, leave the presence of a fool. There's 5 words in the book of Proverbs for fool. Let me tell you what this one is. Not someone who's mentally deficient, but morally deficient. It's the Hebrew word kasil. Leave the presence of a fool, Proverbs 10:23, or you will not discern the words of knowledge. This kind of fool is someone who rejects God's truth and glories in what they should be ashamed of. Those are truth inhibitors. Say no to these ungodly influencers. Number 2, verse 20. Here's another non-negotiable no. Do not be with heavy drinkers of wine, gluttonous eaters of meat, for the heavy drinker and the glutton will come to poverty. Drowsiness will clothe the man with rags. I'm calling this say non-negotiable no to unwholesome associations. It says it, don't be with them. Do not be with them. Undisciplined, carnal, and fleshly. Heavy drinker, wine bibber, we would call it a partier. People who drink, express purpose of drinking intoxicating liquor, just get together. Heavy drinkers, unrestrained appetite. That's what the gluttonous eater, some of your Bibles may say riotous eater. It's a Hebrew word which means they have no boundaries. They overeat. They're undisciplined. The emphasis is on a lack of restraint. Not just overweight, a lack of restraint. These are truth distractors. Their lifestyle results in painful poverty, inwardly, outwardly, and I'm going to say this, actually. We're in a culture of overindulgence. Listen to this, 63% of all men who drink, 71% of men today drink, 63% of those who drink average about 13 binge drinking escapades every 12 months. A recent study of college students, 80% drink. 1.2 million regularly. Of those regular drinkers, 50% binge drink to get drunk. 1,825 college students die every year from alcohol. It's not just poverty and rags, it's injury and catastrophe. 600,000 are injured because of alcohol. 700,000 are assaulted by a drinker. 97,000 are sexually assaulted or raped by a drinker. Excessive drinking every year worldwide leads to 88,000 deaths. 92 people die in America every single day because of alcohol abuse. It is the third largest preventable death in our country. Truth says stay away from the carnal, the overindulgent, the heavy eater, the overdrinker. Don't even hang with them. Thirdly, verse 26. The third non-negotiable no. No immoral relations. Verse 26, give me your heart, my son. Let your eyes delight in my ways. Verse 27, for a harlot is a deep pit. A harlot is somebody who's immoral for money. Okay, and I'm going to add those who sell themselves for income, whether it's physically or visually. And an adulterous woman. Some of your Bibles may say strange. It's not because they're weird. It means they're from a pagan, immoral culture. They're foreign because they're outside of God's people group. They're strange. Those who function immorally according to the current of the without God norms of the culture. Stay away from them. What verse 27? Because she's a deep pit. Deep pit means you can't get out. Narrow well, you get stuck. Very hard to escape. It's dangerous. Notice what verse 28 says. She lurks as a robber. She's predatory. She increases, listen to this, faithlessness. Some of your Bibles will say treachery. It means someone who will cause you to abandon the truth in an unfaithful way. Treachery means what I should live for, I betray. She is a truth betrayer who promotes faith destruction. Now listen, this is an obvious pitfall in our country. The high cost of immorality is high and undeniable. Listen, 57% of married men will commit adultery. 54% of married women. Visual immorality, 80% of men, 35% of women. And an anonymous survey recently said 68% of Christian men regularly view immoral images. Gentlemen, if you're going to buy the truth and not sell it, the emphatic yes, there's a truth betrayer and a faith destroyer. And it is immorality, practiced or seen. Non-negotiable. No way, no how. It numbs, it mutes the truth, it steals your passion, it defeats and discourages you with shame and guilt. Get accountability, get allies. Chris talked about it, whatever it takes. Accountability is the friend of integrity. Build enough insulators in your life to guard you from the propensity of your flesh. Buy the truth, don't sell it. And then finally, and I'll just read this, this is the final no, is reality altering actions. This involves alcohol and drugs. Verse 29, who has woe, who has sorrow, who has contentions, who has complaining, who has wounds without cause. In other words, who's enduring anguish and heartache? Verse 30, those who linger long over wine. Those who go, watch the words, those who go to taste. So go from lingering to tasting mixed wine. That's intensified. Aromatic spices make its alcohol impact greater. Verse 31, do not look on wine when it's red, when it sparkles in the cup. Why? It's seductive. It goes down smoothly. Woe and sorrow are attached, and it results, verse 32, in great pain. Verse 32, why avoid it? Why don't look at it, lest you be sucked in when it's best and most desirable? Verse 32, it bites like a serpent, stings like a viper. It hurts. A viper had a 2-inch fang, very fast, more of a stab than a bite, incredible pain. It bites. Verse 32 or verse 33, your eyes will see strange things. Your mind will utter perverse things. It confuses. That's dysfunctional confusion. You're uncomfortable. I can't function. I wish I had not said that. Out of control, confusion. Verse 34, you will be like one who lies down in the middle of the sea and one who lies down on the top of a mast. It distresses. You ever been seasick? That's that. This is hangover time. Verse 35, they struck me, but I did not become ill. They beat me, but I did not know it. It calluses, disconnects you from reality. And then finally, it enslaves, it controls. When shall I awake? I will seek another drink. It bites, it confuses, it distresses. It calluses, it controls. Question, are any of those things good? They are not good. 75 times the Bible warns of the potential danger and consequences of alcohol. 1 ounce of alcohol retards your muscle reaction by 17%. 1 ounce of alcohol increases required time to make a decision by 10%. 1 ounce of alcohol increases your error due to a lack of attention by 35%. And here's the big one. 1 ounce of alcohol increases lack of muscle coordination by 60%. Wine is a mocker. Strong drink is raging. Whoever is deceived thereby is not wise. Wisdom says, don't look at it. Don't linger long over it. Don't get started. It'll take you places you otherwise wouldn't go. Non-negotiable no's say, I don't want my reality altered. I want to live in the truth. I want to understand the truth. I don't want immorality to numb me. I don't want unwholesome associations to distract me. I don't want ungodly and unholy influencers to affect me. Non-negotiable no. Gentlemen, wise up. Buy the truth. Don't sell it. Get wisdom. Get instruction. Get understanding. Don't sell out no matter what. Can you say amen?
Amen.
I know I've gone long, but let me add one more word on non-negotiable. A year ago, I was supposed to preach in this church, and I couldn't. I couldn't because I made an error of judgment regarding a conviction that old men like me ought not play sports. I played basketball, football, and baseball in high school. The students asked Harry to be in the celebrity basketball game. The celebrity basketball game is faculty and staff with students playing for fun in front of the student body. Harry, will you play? No, I won't play. I'm too old. I've got too many miles on my knees. No, I won't play. Pastor Harry, please, will you play? If you play, they'll love it. No, I'm not going to play. Pastor Harry, please. Just a little while. Okay. 27 seconds of celebrity fame. I went into the game, rebounded, came down, got jostled, landed awkwardly. They inbounded the ball to me. I started to dribble up the court. I couldn't make it halfway up the court. My knee hurt so bad. I hobbled off the court, crawled to my car, crawled up the stairs. I've never felt pain. Medial collateral tear. Not severed, just torn. All because my no didn't mean no. I thought I could get away with it. I just want to punctuate what a non-negotiable necessary no is. No way, no how, not ever. No unholy influencers, no unwholesome associations, no immoral actions, and no reality-altering actions. Father, thanks for the time today. I hope it's been valuable to these men. I pray in Jesus' name that you would help us all to wise up. There's not a thing in our culture that calls us to these priorities, but help us to buy the truth and don't ever sell out to it. Help us to do what it takes to know where we get it, to build protections in our life and promotions in our life that help us to get what we need and avoid what will undermine its value. Lord, I commit these men to you, and I thank you for your call, the wisdom that will give us a life worth living, prosperous and priceless, something that nothing else can secure. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.